Hello, everyone, and welcome to this really interesting conversation with these really great people. Today, I'm saying this is an interesting conversation because this is going to be about a very amazing topic, a topic that kind of obsesses everybody, and that's freedom and autonomy. When people hear the word freedom, everybody will be like, yes, I like freedom. I like autonomy. But what kind of freedom? And is there a difference between autonomy and freedom? Today, as I said, I have my great friends here, and we're going to explore this topic, talking about freedom, autonomy, and the difference between them. And is there a real difference? And which one do we need more, freedom or autonomy? Now, as I said, I have Roma here, and also I have my brother Roberto. First, I'll give everyone a chance to introduce himself, and after that, we'll explore the topic step by step. So I'll start with Roma.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dare, the good presenter.
Thank you.
I think yes, very significant topic that we need to discuss, and we need to elaborate, and we need to extend what exactly the context of the freedom and the autonomy. For me, as I said, like, I don't want to go there deeply generally, but I think it's very significant as humans to know exactly what is meant to be freedom. To generalize is that the freedom, I think, the process of we becoming to implement what we think is more best option or something like that. And autonomy is there, I think, in the context that related to the concept of self determining the choices that you want to have it for your own self, I guess. So this is the general introduction, and then we can see.
Nice, nice. Roberto.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you also for arranging and planning this conversation today. I am very happy to see all of you. And those who are watching, we would like to
Right.
actually know your
Say hi.
opinion,
Right.
comments, whatever you want to share. We'll read.
Right.
So today, maybe my idea is to not to present the trivial or well-known uh, ideas about freedom or autonomy, maybe practical, personal, and illustrative examples how I consider it important, both concepts, consider them. So
Nice, nice, nice. So, one of the important things to remember when discussing a topic like this is to start with some simple definitions that can help us lead the conversation. So, the key words here are autonomy and freedom, or freedom and autonomy. Now, again, we're not going to look for dictionary definitions that everybody agrees on,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Like
I want you guys to come up with your own definitions. Like Omar, how do you define those words?
I think generally I would define the freedom is like, for example, not focusing on the classical and the theological definitions, but I kind of generally say that freedom is the capacity to be able to have those kind of good choices that you make and then process to implement those choices that you have. For example, I choose the good from bad. So how are you going to be a good person for them in life? So that the process of becoming and the way you act to process that, I think that's the idea of the we're moving on the freedom. It's not about like the maximization of, let's say, choices that existed. I need to have many multiple choices that to do, or to generally say, like in a very old classical understanding of freedom, people are saying sometimes I have to have all the choices that I need to do whatever I like to do. So do I, let's say, if there's someone say like it's my interest to do something bad to the humans, if that is a choice can be defined in the freedom. I think to the sense of we are the humans, so we obviously that we are not like create ourselves, for example. So necessarily there is a sense of that. I think that the moral high position for a human to say I have the ultimate moral position to decide whatever is good, whatever is like nice or bad, or I don't know, those options that we human we don't have it. I think we can explore through those choices that exist. So my simple point is that it's not about the maximization of the choices, and it's not even minimization of the choices of the freedom that existed. And to the other side of the autonomy is that it's more about self, like for example, like self-legislation, for example, meaning that I, as the persons, I will do my best to make the best choices based on my, let's say, subjective understanding of things. So meaning that kind of sovereignty, self-governing, self-becoming, you become responsible on your own choices, I guess. I think that's the way I can see the definition of the freedom.
Interesting. Roberto, first, do you agree with the definitions? And if yes, is there anything else that you want to add? And if no, how do you define the two words?
I don't want to disagree in the part of the definition, but
That's the freedom.
but I want to disagree in many other points, but not defining.
Okay.
I am kidding, no. But maybe to summarize, I would say that according to that perspective is the existence of these options. Multiple options are needed if we talk about freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like to make it very, very short,
Sure.
we understand freedom if the options exist.
Right. Okay. So freedom is the existence of options. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I mean at least in
Have the option to do whatever you like to do.
Whatever.
Not exactly that. Is that in simple terms? For example, I am in a restaurant and there is a menu. There are different options. Okay, I can see if somebody tells me, okay, you are free to choose the one that you want. There is freedom if the options exist. This is one way of to illustrate it simply. For example, if I am forced or I am oppressed, now in the very well-known condition of lack of freedom, for example, slavery. In that case, the options are not permitted to exist.
Right.
So this is what I wanted to illustrate, and maybe the second example is the simple or probably that we all understand, but the first one was the one I wanted to emphasize. Okay, let's talk about freedom, or to present it in simple terms, that the options exist.
Okay. Omar, what do you think about that? Freedom is, well, I don't want to say the existence of options, but there is freedom if there is options.
Yeah, I kind of see Roberto's perspective in general, but I kind of still slipping to understand exactly what you mean by the multiplicity of the option, or they necessarily have to be option to define. If you are not making a clear dimension on option exists to do what or to choose whatever we like to choose from those options. If they are limited to the rules, for example, if like let's say you were saying like I am there in the restaurants, and then there are multiple or different type of meal like or names existed in the menu, and if you feel like it's very significant that this is we define it as the option. I think this is like some kind of oriented, managed, option. You don't choose them. You didn't like make those meal, for example. Those meal are already being determined. It's like very marketing idea perspective to understand. For example, the restaurant owners, they think like this is the good product for the customers.
And you're free.
And you're free. I think I kind of disagree on that context. Otherwise, we have to have clarifications, because there's a clear fragmentation on the concept itself, I think. So,
Okay, so Roberto, you're just given options. For example, okay, if you go to a restaurant where there's only two options, this and this, in your terms, there you're free. If you choose this, you're free, and if you choose this, you're free. But in fact, freedom goes beyond that, or at least this is what I understand from what Omar says, because he says, okay, you're not the maker of that menu. The menu is just given to you, and you can't add any other options. You just choose what's on the menu. That's not freedom. That's like just taking whatever that is offered to you.
I actually agree. I mean, the concept of freedom, if defined, includes many more elements rather than maybe an emphasis of freedom of choice, for example. That is probably what I am illustrating with the example. And I decided to illustrate this freedom or the example of the menu because I wanted to present autonomy in that context. Okay, if there are options, let's say that I agree totally that this is not the more complete definition of freedom, but just let's continue with the illustration and the maybe freedom of choice. The options exist, but the autonomy is that based on I don't know exactly what determines my decision, but I am not forced. I am the external factors will not determine my election. So by my autonomy, I decide this option.
Okay, I wanna press you a little bit on this, Roberto. Okay, if there is a dictator, I think whoever is under a dictator, I mean, I think you'd consider somebody who is living under a dictator as somebody who's not free, right? Right. Okay. So if there is a dictator who allows you to have a lot of money, and he also allows you to go out, enjoy your life, but then you can't think about how he rules the country. You can't think about how he does business. Do you consider yourself, or do you think that's freedom? Like, because he's giving you options. He's giving you a lot of options. Having money, living your life, but then there are these red lines. Is that like living in a free environment?
So this is very good. It demonstrates that the example of the menu is only a simple illustration, but do not represent completely what is freedom, or sorry that I approached to freedom of choice.
It's okay.
Because I don't know, I felt inclined to talk about freedom of choice when in the context of autonomy.
Right.
But yes, there in that case, the dictator is
Oppressing others?
Is excluding options. So there is an interference in the freedom. This is what I think.
I think I want to come to these areas, it's still, I think I was very, let's say, deeply processing the concept when you bring in the idea of autonomy to the restaurant, or let's say the manual, for example. I think autonomy there's a problem here in autonomy, because the autonomy is self-governing, self-sovereignty, self-ruler. You could call it like self-dictator. In a simple dimensions. Meaning that
that's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
meaning that even the mail that available, you have a questions in that mails. Why this has have to be existed? I need to come and make my own mail in the restaurant. That's the autonomy existed in that context. If you speak.
I don't want to have this ingredient in this meal, right?
Exactly. You have a problem even why the restaurant has to be existed here. So you might thinking about the process of restaurant existed and the process of the meal are made and why the owner have to do it like that, because autonomy is about selfing. You imposing yourself to the context of those products that are available. So it's not about it's kind of like, for me, generally speaking, again, is that autonomy is a kind of modern version of understanding the human self, meaning that capacity of having knowledge and ideas and information that help you, for example, to make a good choices. So do those good choices primarily are existed before we come and see them. For example, the option that existed in a restaurant, the meal type that existed in autonomy levels is that you have a question with the availability, even if by the definition of economically they existed by the restaurant owner, for example. You have a question with them. You have a point that you're saying that why this have to be existed. You might think I need a different cuisine from, for example, why this cuisine naturally existed every day in this meal and sorry in this restaurant. So autonomy is there's a problem here in autonomy.
But I'm like, isn't that like conflicting between autonomy and freedom? Because like, okay, I
They're
have
conflicting. For me,
right. Okay, so I have a restaurant. I exercise my autonomy to make my restaurant work. So I make the menus, I offer the meals and everything, and I give people the freedom to choose. They have their autonomy. They can reject the whole thing. They can say, no, I'm not going to eat in your restaurant because you're not offering me what I want.
Yeah.
And they have the freedom to go choose what they want. But when they come to my restaurant and say, no, I want to have this ingredient in this restaurant, is it not like taking their self-governing or self-sovereignty, as I said, and exercising it on me as an individual who's just exercising his self-autonomy?
Yeah,
Isn't that like a conflict?
It's obviously is a conflicting concepts. That's why I said there is a clear fragmentation between the freedom and the autonomy. They are not the same context. For example, if I to let's say extended the idea, for example, freedom in my general terms, this is a very open word that expresses the human choices, availability of the choices. I still disagree about the maximization. Many options have to be existed, the multiplicity of the options that have to be there.
To what extent?
For me, what I'm saying is that it's not about having many options. It's about what option that you have, for example, the way you mastering that option to implement whatever you want to do. For example, I have an option to be, let's say, an engineer, or I have an option to study this field, for example. Okay, so you get the option now, so you get access to that college or department or faculty, and now the capacity you're mastering that faculty that's the way I will define the option being mastered or not. So that's the way I'm saying that if human came to the point of necessarily there have to be many choices in everything. All right, someone is very killer. So people say, so this is the human choices. People can do kill and do whatever they like it to do. I think this will put another very complex, let's say, the context to the life. And the other dimension is that the autonomy never saying okay.
No, okay.
All right, autonomy is never saying that that like it's about I have a choice only in that context. It's about I have a choice, even I have to master that choice. Like I have to govern the choice. Nobody let's say point me, like even in a department, I have a choice to attend the lecture of a professor or not. That's autonomy will decide because it's self-governing to the department that I have chosen, for example. Autonomy is somehow is a problem here because saying rules are made by myself. The time is all options are being made here. They are not available existing choice from the external forces. They are available existing choices from the internal force of the self, which is that absolutely self-aggrandizement or selfishness. That's the concept.
So are you saying autonomy is bad?
Yeah, I think like we can go there to reach, but I don't want to make conclusion to say autonomy is bad or not bad. I think the way you master those choices, for example, by definition, to say we human, do we have a clear path for what is meant to be good? For example, I would say good is not collectively being defined or objectively. So meaning that it became more on the personally there and communally and socially different. So in that context, if there are paths or rules or process to say like this is the way to master good or the humanity or to be humane in that context, for example, I think I would say yeah, okay, good, but it's all about mastering the choices that you have by moral guidance and moral instruction and ethical ways, I guess.
Okay, Roberto, do you see a conflict between freedom and autonomy? Is there a conflict?
No. I think that I will try to put it simple again.
Sure.
Because I know that you are intellectual people, but not all the public necessarily
True. Okay.
Goes in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, not necessarily I disagree with what Omar said.
Mm-hmm.
For example, about the many options or only a few options. I think there are moments in life,
Mm-hmm.
or there are times in which we can have only two options.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean that there is no freedom there? No. But still, I mean, the illustration, not a perfect illustration, but my way of presenting freedom, now you made me realize that it was more in a direction of freedom of choice, not like the broad concept of freedom. But still, my illustration will put autonomy
Mm-hmm.
actually in a sense in which I need the options
Mm-hmm.
to execute, or to what is
To
the word?
exercise my
exercise
autonomy?
my
Choices.
autonomy
Ah.
are needed the options. I never said many options or a few options, but if the if there is a limitation of the options
Mm-hmm.
in which I am not allowed to
Detach.
decide,
Uh-huh.
to probably I need to illustrate it again.
Great.
Maybe the options that are presented in the menu
Mm-hmm.
are only, I don't know, for male.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
I see.
On the example
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
dictator,
Uh-huh.
the options that are presented,
Are only for men.
yes,
Okay.
okay, there are options, yes, there are options. Is there a limitation in the freedom of choice, or the freedom? I would say yes. Autonomy. Should I decide by the definition that you gave was self-governance?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Actually,
Legislation is better.
actually, it comes from the Greek words
Uh-huh.
auto
Mm-hmm.
and nomos,
Ah.
which
Self.
exactly, and governance,
Right.
or,
Self.
or
Right.
ruling, or
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and I think is part, not the same concept, definitely, I agree,
Mm-hmm.
not a conflict between freedom and autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe which are the elements which make me to make a decision. For example, I don't know, I am a vegetarian,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the truth. Okay, according to my principles, I can choose this option, this other option, or things like that. Maybe I am forced to eat by my father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no, you need to eat such and such and such thing. Are there options? Okay, maybe they are limited. My decision is still affected by others. Sometimes I am not forced, but there is pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there are other agents that can compromise my decision by the self-governance or the autonomy. I can say, okay, no, according to my values and my principles, I decide this. So I don't, I decide for myself
Mm-hmm.
what is the correct, or what I want, or the choice that I am going to make.
I think
If I
okay.
elaborate.
I think the conflict is here. Roberto is concerned with the availability of options. Are there options? Maybe they're limited, but yeah, there are options, and I can choose from these options. To him, that's like exercising your autonomy. Rama says no. Okay, yeah, there are options, but then those options are very limited, and I'm not the one who's making the options. The options are just given to me. So even if I choose, I'm still limited. I'm still, yeah, exercising my autonomy, but then that's not like freedom. It's just giving you a little space. right? Am I summing up the whole thing?
Yeah, they are a little bit, let's say, inflicting between the autonomy and the freedoms. I said freedom is not necessarily focused on the providing multiple options in order to choose one or not. Not you don't need to necessarily focus on how many options are there. Should there be more or not more? I was saying is the freedom is, yeah, they necessarily there have to be options for people to choose, and at the same time it never finished at that in that context. It will focus on the idea that the option that you have taken, okay, process. How do you process? For example, you have a goal to achieve. That goal, it happened to be a long-term process. So it cannot be achieved in one day. So the process that you're becoming to reaching the goal, I think the option that you're making, if it those, for example, are very humane, like it's a good serving you and serving other humans, for example, if they're like something good, not harming others, and not harming even yourself, for example. So the way option is being mastered, I think that's the centrality of the freedom. That's what I'm saying. Self autonomy, well, let's say autonomy, not necessarily saying self autonomy, but autonomy. It's kind of saying is that not only about necessarily there should be an option, but also it's about those options who is providing it, the critiquing the concepts from where the option I came from. The autonomy story thing is saying that necessarily the human self, the human self. I don't know what we meant by human self, but in general, it's a very complex term here existed, the human self. It that self necessarily need to be defined itself or create itself or form itself or process its life dichotomy process of living by itself or not. But I think in the context that the autonomy is saying is everything is made by that self. And then
Okay.
I go into posterity,
Okay, so you mentioned the word harm, right?
Okay.
Now, do you think that autonomy is not autonomy if it causes harm, and freedom is not freedom if it causes harm? Like, is that what you're saying?
Put the autonomy aside. Autonomy yet to decide whether there is harm or not harm because about self-governing. It never focuses about the other human side. It's about centrality of self. That's autonomy. So about saying harming or not harming, let's put it aside. We don't want to come in directly. Let's go to the freedom. Freedom is is if you're harming the exercise of the choices that you're making, if you're harming someone else, I think that's not a freedom. For example, someone crazy who want to do something bad for humans. Do we tell them, it's the human?
Someone wants to destroy somebody else's restaurant because he doesn't have the options.
Or you hate him or something like that, for example. If it's that exercising the choices that we are talking about, the multiplicity of the actions, choice, availability. I don't think so. I think I disagree in that context. But to bring the autonomy to this subject, autonomy has the whole structure has a problem within. Autonomy, the whole idea, autonomy is saying is me. So why not me? I'm the owner of the restaurant itself. That's autonomy question for my views. Autonomy has a problem with the structure of the restaurant. Has a problem. Why this? Why not this? Not only just I choose it, but also it's about the whole process because it's self-governing or self-legislation process. So self-legislation meaning that it's not about rules that already existed externally, but also the rules has to be existed internally. Meaning I make rules, I define the restaurant, I define what kind of meal there, maybe based on the interest of a self. So is it narcissistic? Yes, it's narcissistic. Is it selfish? Yes. Aggrandized? Yes. Everything. But why we need to put it in a context of is it bad or not bad? Why we need to make it like a dualistic view of understanding life or things to say like, this is bad, so we human, we need to just let it because autonomy is saying we need to govern. But autonomy has a problem.
No,
okay, let arise the autonomy problem. Autonomy problem is that we human, we're different. Educationally speaking, our level is different. The consciousness, the human capacity of able to see, think whether good or bad, even is different. That's why we have a different background culturally. Even educational level are different from one person to person, and even from one community to community and country to the country are different. So, is the autonomy need to be openly exercised in that context? Within these clear diversities, I think autonomy is the problem because if you give autonomy, self-governing to the ignorant, illiterate, or let's say illiterate persons who is yet to understand, what's meant to be human or humane, So he will do something kind of crazy because there is no self-mastering management process existed in any human being. Yeah, there are some people, they, for example, we, or generally I regard that, yeah, people educated, people know the good and bad, people able to decide the choices. But do you think these choices, if you give it for someone who is ignorant or someone who is a little bit weak, not having that capacity to make those choices, do you think they will able to master that self-governing process? No.
This actually reminds me of of what happened back in 2019. I'm talking about Sudan here.
Yeah, yeah.
In 2019, when everyone was just protesting against everything, and the system was overthrown, there were people who were just going around harassing girls, for example, and if they were asked, they would say, "Well, you said this is freedom." Right, because that was part of the slogan of the revolution, "Hurriya Salam
Adalo.
Adad." So that was like really interesting, and you mentioned the point about illiterate people having freedom, and they don't know like whether this like they don't know what to do with it. But I still don't actually understand like your point about autonomy. Like as a person, do you think it's a good thing to be like autonomously free to exercise your autonomy, or do you think it's a bad thing?
As long as that person's, you have the quality, educated, erudite, intellectual, or necessarily, you know the value of the humans. You have the necessary, let's say, high ground of morality that you're able to make a good choices. For example, let's say assuming that let's just have a very good practical example. There are two people, for example.
But that's
Let's say society. There are people live with a religious background, racial background, tribal background, very diverse. There are three people that optionally there existed to be selected to be the leaders. If these three people, one is centralizing the ruling system by their own belief system or the context. For example, if he religious person and he felt like my system will govern these people is theocratic. Someone said no, it's democratically there. Even theocracy said, someone people say yeah, it's a democratic, but still someone said I have a liberal perspective on ruling those people, meaning that I don't focus on my belief to centralize the ruling ideas. So for the person who doesn't realize the differences of the people in that community, and when we give the autonomy process, I think will be bad choice. So that's why autonomy will be good when someone has those capacities, ability to make those kind of choices in a very effective and very good, not harmful ways. It's the good for them. But autonomy giving for someone, you get it.
So autonomy is good if you're responsible enough to take care of the limits that are there.
Yeah.
Okay, Roberto, do you think freedom is no longer freedom if it causes harm? And the same thing goes for autonomy. Like, do you think it's no longer autonomy or freedom if it causes harm?
I think it is still freedom, but maybe the exercise of autonomy makes cause problems. So I will not blame freedom. Let me present examples again.
Right.
For example, okay, trying to go to autonomy because I really want to show autonomy as, the possibility to decide according to my values, principles, even in a case where my freedom is affected or is limited. Let's say that I am in prison. Even I have autonomy to decide according to my values, my principles, my beliefs, to make decisions. Are my options limited? Yes, but still, all the time we exercise our autonomy. Should one person be, limited in their possibilities to decide by their values, their principles, their beliefs? Uh, okay, maybe we should approach to the role of the civil authorities, but it is not the direction I want to address or take right now. So in general, okay, even if I am in prison and there are limited options to decide, I can
Exercise your
exercise my
autonomy.
autonomy. Is it preferable that we have more alternatives in life? Yes. Does it mean that we, I don't know, we should be limited in the options we have? I don't think so. I mean,
Okay. I'm sorry, but okay. So Elmer thinks that autonomy is not good if the person is not responsible enough to exercise it in a responsible manner. Do you agree? Like, okay, having autonomy, yeah, it is good as long as you have values that don't conflict with other people's values, and you have values that go with everybody else's values, then you're not going to cause harm to others. The moment you start causing harm to others, then this is no longer autonomy.
yes, I understand. No, actually, okay, let me, for not making a mistake,
That's
to
okay.
misunderstand
Okay, sure.
Omar's point and even your description, to repeat it by my words.
Sure.
But even I will contradict myself. Just
It's
my,
okay.
my previous statement,
It's okay.
because maybe I said something like, okay, should our alternatives be limited? Okay, maybe depending on the context, I would say I would stand for that statement. That this is the one that I am going to contradict, because yes, maybe, I mean, even the role of justice, of civil authorities, or again, example, a father.
Nice.
Am I against a father limiting the alternatives to his son? I don't know, to manipulate a knife, for example. Things like that. Okay, in that context, I think that obviously this is a good exercise of his autonomy as a father who has a responsibility with his children, but from the child, from his point of view, oh no, but I don't have all the alternatives. Oh, is there a lack of freedom? I don't know. I think that we need to talk about freedom and autonomy.
Separate them.
If we talk also about law,
Ah.
as we talked last time,
Okay.
we would need to deal with that concept again. But I mean, addressing from the point of view of society, of how people decide. The example that you made about raising ladies, okay, should we limit them to exercise their freedom? Or I don't know if it is even freedom. Actually, from my point of view, even I would call the law of liberty.
Ah,
And
the law of liberty. That's
this is
Okay.
this is now I'm learning a lot of new terms because earlier Omar came self dictatorship.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have the law of liberty. Okay, but I have a question that might direct the topic a little bit in a different way, which is like, and this is also gonna help us explore your like personal values and everything. Now, who or what, in your own opinion, is the freedom giver? Because we're talking about freedom, autonomy, and the options and everything. But who is the maker? Like, who's the giver? Who gives us freedom? Who gives us autonomy? Is it okay? Yeah.
No, I think yeah, this is a very powerful question, but this question is it's I think our discussion we are not yet to reach to that level to
Okay.
answer this question. I guess I think we're still processing. But if we proceed, for me, we human, all right. So we don't make things by our own. So they I think existed. So to that context is that we are not giving people freedom. For example, even if you're authority, let's say, or you are a governor, you are exercising the rules. You're not giving people by your own willing. It's like a police rule says the police have to respect the civilians when they are engaged in any event, for example. So if that's the willingness of that decency of the police, that's why I have to deal with the civilian in a good way. No, I think the rule is saying it. So to that context, and the question will lead there, I say like, okay, who ruled from where it came? Yeah, from the community, from the humans, when people come together. What is the point of, we say like, we're a social being, all right? Or generally we're a social animal, or we're a social species, for example. I would say like, yeah, we are there. So the idea of being together, so that's deforming the options that existed. But the point that I want to even push it harder to go, not only stick with the definitions of freedoms and autonomy, but also what is the after? What is next, for example? Okay, you get your freedom. Okay, what is the next? All right, you want to do whatever you want to do? Okay, do it. Okay, now you had a choice. So for me, I think like the way you are mastering or using the option that you have, or option that be given by law, you know, I think the way you're implementing it, by the sense of we are communion, human or being, that we have to respect each other, is not your choice. I disrespect all human beings. It's not a choice, I think. By definition of if you define yourself, you're a social being. If you believe that, then it's not a choice to say like I need to disrespect, for example, Dare or Roberto, for example. I think it's not a choice because we are human being. We live in a society. And if you think like this is it's a good choice, or regardless of saying good or bad, it's saying it's a choice where I need to disrespect someone. And I think what is the point of doing that? So that's why when we process to what is after will happen, okay, you disrespect someone, what will happen? So the happening that you
The other person is going to disrespect
yeah,
you.
so meaning that you are disconnecting the society, the value that we have as the human, respect each other and respect and to be respected, and that kind of context, decency, the moralities that we have, we are different than other species in general sense. So that's the idea of saying that there are value make human as in the society. There are rules, let's say, in a simple manner.
So, okay. So, in simple terms, are you saying we don't know who or what the freedom giver is? Freedom is already there, but we, as a society, we regulate it, we limit it, and we put some regulations that will make everybody operate in a way that will help us as a society live together.
Generally kind of options in life, whether we can see them or not, we can see them. Options are existed in mundane level. For example, it's your option. You can fly from the 10 floors to the down. It's the option. Is you can go there and you can jump. It's totally fine. There is no air there or someone can stop you. You can do it. You can lock yourself inside the room. It's just the option is existed. The mastering process, that's what I'm talking about. So,
But you think that's the wrong option, though?
yeah, that's the point. That's why I'm saying like when you ask that question, it's the question leading to the deciding between the good and bad, or is it a good option or not, if they need to be processed or not. I feel like not yet to come. Let's analyze the options and then we see based on analysis, and then we define that this is a bad option and the human shouldn't do it, or this is a good option for human can do it. I feel like that's why the question is still we are not reached there, but we can fly to go there. In general context or simple term is that I don't know generally, but okay.
Okay.
Let's
Nice. Roberto, what do you think? Okay, so I'll ask you the same question, like who the freedom giver, and do you agree with Omer's perspective that freedom is already there? We humans are not the makers of freedom. We just regulate it and we let everybody enough, like we let everybody have enough space where they can exercise their freedom without harming others.
God created human beings.
Right.
God created them according to His image and likeness. Especially, I would say especially now with my word, in terms of the possibility to choose, freedom of choice, even freedom in the broad concept of the word. So yes, God gives freedom, and I will answer the not asked question, the unasked question. Is it freedom if there is a possibility to decide, if there is not a possibility to decide against the law given or existing law. That's why I would call this law actually the law of liberty, and that there is no lack of freedom if the consequences of misusing the freedom causes harm, damage, or is against us. For example, the person who was harassing, the law existed. And I am now talking in civil terms because to illustrate it.
Right.
The law existed. Okay. Is there a problem with the law? Is there reason it refrains or it puts limits to the exercises for freedom? I consider no. Actually, the law exists to illustrate the previous point, to give freedom. Why? Because there is a problem in the same person who is going against the law. It is against himself. And the law regulates, so this is what I can...
Very interesting. I really want to have, I don't know, comment on that, but then I also have a question that, like another question. So, okay, I'm not sure if I understand the term, the law of liberty, well. Like, for example, okay, so if, again, I'll give an example. If I live in a place where I'm given, okay, if I live in North Korea, okay, now there is a law, and that law has, some options. You can choose to do certain things that are totally legal, and you can opt to do other things that are not legal. Now, if we're following the definition of the law of liberty, probably that matches the definition. Like, okay, yeah, this is the law of liberty, and these are the options. Choose these options. Choose any of these options, so you're free. But the moment you opt to other options, then boom, you're not free. Now, is that a good or does that match the law of liberty? And is there one law of liberty that everybody should follow, or there are a lot of laws of liberty?
That's why the example is not the perfect illustration of the concept, similar to the menu. But let me explain more.
Sure.
So, definitely, this is not the law of liberty. Not the civil law that I know in my country or any other countries we presented as example. But the giver of the law of liberty and the creator gave a law that brings liberty. I stand for that concept, and I will illustrate it again. Yes, if I follow what is given in that law, which is the best for me, I will live in plentiness or fullness, happiness, and it will help also to others around me to be allowed to exercise their autonomy and their liberty and their happiness and their joy and all those things. If I follow that law of liberty, that's actually why it is a law of liberty. But if I disobey this law of liberty, let us exclude the obvious examples that I think we agree that if I kill, this is one of the statements of that law of liberty. You shall not kill. Let's say that I kill, I am causing damage to another. So it is a simple example of why this law will or brings liberty. But let's go to other cases in general terms as well. Let's say that the consequences of going against that law of liberty we are living right now, that there is pain, there is suffering, there is death, whatever. Okay, so in my own experience, I can say that it is difficult to overcome habits. It is difficult even to overcome what I am going to call sin, but let's illustrate it as going against that law of liberty. In general terms, whatever that is, I don't know, any addiction, any vice, any things that I cannot overcome. Okay. And I think, I have experience in my 33 years of life, and I know that according to, to this, I want to do things. I want to follow one direction, but I cannot. I want, even with the multiple options, understanding which is correct, even according to the law of liberty, but according to what I want to do, that is what is correct, but I cannot, and I fail. I try, no, I cannot. Okay. What happens in my illustration? I supposedly would say, if going in the wrong direction against that law of liberty will bring, I don't know, punishment, supposedly it means that the law is not liberty. Actually, with my example, what I say is that the opposite, totally. Actually, the experience shows that going against that law or liberty is which makes me a slave and with this lack of freedom. So I can think, oh, human, we want liberty. No, this law, liberty, we don't want. But we want liberty, the other option. Okay, no, this law actually is the one who brings you liberty. But no, I want other options. If the other options in my autonomy I follow, is there a problem with that? It was never a law of liberty. But I was saying, no. The giver of the law gave a perfect law, and by experience, we know that going against the law of liberty makes us
slaves.
No,
I will not say more, so you can address him or answer to my question and
Okay, so this is a very interesting part of the conversation, actually, because now we're getting somewhere. Now I think Roberto is saying that there is a law of liberty, and liberty is just another word for freedom. Can we call it the law of freedom?
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So there is a law of freedom. Now, whoever is out of that law of freedom is not free. Actually, experience shows that whoever is not included or whoever is not practicing that law of freedom is not free, is actually a slave. Now, I'm not sure if Amr agrees with that. Amr, what do you think?
No, I just
In a
say
minute.
that's very theological and religious perspective. And when you just size, I think like reminding human that whatever you guys are doing is yes, it already existed and created by God, and you have to follow the instruction and something like that. I think like you exclude the time for self independency and self thinking, self making process. I think sound even you exclude the autonomy here, because autonomy is the self governing, the self primary mover of those laws that you're talking about. So I think
Wait, you remember earlier you were saying that autonomy is not a good thing?
no, I'm saying regardless of we are saying good or bad.
Uh-huh.
But the point that the Roberto is making, I'm saying there is the clear exclusions, not inclusion, exclusion of the autonomy existence, because you are making a clear, a very, let's say, theological perspective of saying that everything is being made by God. I'm saying that that's a very general conclusion, but it's not necessarily we have to just saying that everything made by God or not necessarily made by God or not by God, for example. I just say things that are existed, regardless who made, for example. And when we centralize that, it's specifically that shape or that thing is made those things, then I think we are reminding the human, you don't have a space to think about anything. Everything is just being provided by the creator or by the lawgiver, and then you just follow up. So I'm saying is, so where the autonomy here? Autonomy
Okay.
disappear.
I think
Yes.
this will be
More
an
debating.
this will be an interesting part 2,
Mm.
where here we have a law of freedom, and here we have freedom existing and society regulating it. Now, that's at least what Umar is saying. Umar is saying, yeah, okay, we humans are not creating things. We're not the one who creates things. Now, freedom is there. We regulate it. We just regulate it to an extent where everybody can exercise their autonomy, their freedom in a way that doesn't harm others. Now, Roberto says, okay, yeah, but then there is a law of freedom. Even like, okay, you can be a part of this law of freedom where you'll be happy, you exercise your freedom and everything, and you can live outside of it, but then experience shows that when you're out of this law of freedom, you're actually a slave. So that will be conversation 2, and I think that will be even more interesting. So with that, we'll conclude this part 1, and everybody stay tuned for part 2.